G'day, freedom fighters. How are we today? So that new intro is still rocking and looking pretty good. Hey, I must say I'm feeling pretty impressed with myself. You know, it's one of those moments where like, well, if I could, I'd go and marry myself. But well, you probably can these days, but I don't think it's really going to achieve anything. But that said, I'm pretty happy with it. Although, no sooner have I created it, I thought, I can do this and I can do that. But worry about that another day. What's important today is that we have this fluoride issue that's popping up again. Now, for those of you who follow the Townsville Bulletin, you probably think that this is just some brand new friggin' thing conjured up by a bunch of anti-fluoride people. Those anti-people who are always anti this and anti that. What horrible people, because in the absence of an actual argument, we only have insults. So we can have a quick squiz at this unremarkable piece of journalism. We can't expect too much from the conspiracy theorists themselves, who are so intellectually void that they actually thought an Indigenous man was Troy Thompson in disguise. It's very, very concerning. And this article is written by none other than Cameron Bates, with the help of Chris Burns, of course, one of the Labor puppets. Cameron Bates is, of course, responsible for the conspiracy theory. He is chief conspiracy theorist at the Townsville Bulletin. So it's unsurprising that he would start with anti-fluoride. We've got to start with that anti, it's all about them anti-people, You can have a bit of a look here and read through this unremarkable piece of documentation if you wish. As usual, it's typical Mayor Troy Thompson bashing for the most part, because how dare he suggest such things, he said that everything's on the table. There is mention here. Good old Anne-Marie Greeny, she reckons she's a fluoride baby and she grew up drinking it, and she reckons there's nothing wrong with her. I reckon there's a lot of people in this town that beg to differ, but that's another story, Briefly, they're saying that it only costs $300,000 of your taxpayer money a year, which is probably quite insignificant considering how much money they spend on legal fees to attack the general citizenry. There's another story we will come to you with a little bit, because I was actually over on Magnetic Island yesterday with good old Anne-Marie Greeny, who, as people commented to me, she was the nicest she'd been in a long time, seeing that I was there with a camera. Very surprising, I'm sure, to most people. But throughout this article, there is a point here and that I want to mention, because the Townsville Bulletin have decided to not mention the network much anymore. They realised that they're actually helping me every time they mention the North Queensland Freedom Network. So, it says here, before he was sworn in as Mayor Troy Thompson potentially scrapping fluoridation of Townsville's water supply as a cost-cutting measure. Now, they didn't want to cite where he said that from, because he said it here on this network. So I will do the investigative journalism that these guys are incapable of doing. And I would like to begin by sharing with you that little statement, because and for those of you who haven't seen it, I do encourage you to go back to the Troy Thompson for Mayor video that we did back in February, where obviously the mainstream media only focused on that one small element of him stating that his military career was 5 years, when in fact it was 2. Whether that was an oversight or not, I'll leave that to the general public to make up their own minds, unlike, the Townsville Bulletin, who, are insistent that he's just a straight out liar. I'll let you make up your own mind. But I will share this little video that I knocked up by going through the old video. And here is our discussion on fluoride back in February. Call has a topic here that's a little controversial. Fluoride and other chemicals in the water. That didn't work as well as I thought it was going to. Sorry, guys. For some reason, that is totally out of proportion. What's going on there? This is what happens when you don't test things beforehand. Struth. I don't know that I can fix that quickly. Why has that happened? Just give me 1 second. Let's go back to that folder there and see what's it look like at this end. No, not that one. Where is it? Oh, it has come out.
Freedom.
Why has it come out like that? All right. All right. So, well, we won't start with that. I'll come to that in a minute. While I quickly fix that, I will bring my good friend Daryl into the stage. G'day, Daryl. How you going, mate?
Good, buddy. Good, Batty. How are you, buddy?
Yeah. Running behind schedule and not quite getting my video right at the moment, man. So, I guess the real story here isn't so much that it is it's safe as much as how they're regulating the water. And I sent a letter 28 days ago, which I think hopefully I should be able to share that one nice and easily without something going wrong. And we'll come back to what Troy Thompson said in a minute. Let me just present this little piece of information here for the general public. So this is straight the wrong one. I didn't want that one to come up. I'm not having a good day.
And it's still the morning there in...
I know. I still got so much more of it to get through. This is the one I wanted to bring up. Sorry. So, there I am going by Batty Bogan just to throw people off by giving them my real name at the bottom. So this is the original letter, as you can see, dated on the 5th of this month, of last month, sorry. Notice to Townsville City Council, all councillors and respective water departments. Is Townsville City Council via Section 7 of the Water Fluoridation Act 2008 Queensland responsible for the fluoridation of the portable water supply? If so, can Townsville City Council please provide the certification from the National Measurements Institute satisfying Section 10H of the National Measurement Act 1960, Commonwealth, because it's a federal act, of the equivalent that meters fluoride into the portable water supply, satisfying Regulation 4 of the Fluoridation Act, Regulation 2020. As a customer of the portable water supply, I am requesting that evidence of the certification number issued by National Measurement Institute of the equipment be sent to my residential address within the next 28 days. So, could you quickly perhaps explain to the people what that means and what it is I've requested whilst I desperately scramble to fix my previous error?
No worries, man.
Thanks,
mate.
The
Water Fluoridation Act in Queensland is probably one of the most comprehensive in the country, actually. It really calls on the local council, which is the one who are in charge essentially of the water treatment plant, to test daily the quantity of fluoride that's put into the water supply. And in the case of Townsville, and pretty much most of Queensland, it's 0.6 of a milligram per litre, which is a very, very tiny amount. And all you've been requesting from the water treatment plant operator is to fulfill their obligations under the legislation to make sure that what the equipment that they're relying upon is actually metering in at that exact amount, not more and not less, as required by the statute. So there's the statute being the Act, the Fluoridation of Water Supply in Queensland, and the regulations have got a strict measurement, and that measurement must be adhered to according to the legislation. So all you're requesting is that is the equipment that they're using, is that equipment, is it certified by the National Measurements Institute? And they rely on the National Measurements Act, which is a Commonwealth law, and that was brought in 1960. Of course, it was there prior to that, but the updated act is 1960. And the chief metrologist is in charge of the National Measurements Institute. And there is a National Measurements Institute in every capital city throughout Australia. And their job is to certify any equipment that's used in the public realm for the purposes of measuring. So in this particular case, it's the measurement of a prescribed liquid as per the state law into the potable water supply. So, and the National Measurements Institute, when they certify an instrument for the purposes of measuring a quantity, a physical quantity into a given in for the public realm, a good example of that is your petrol bowsers. So your petrol bowsers, they all have a National Measurement Institute certification number, and that's fairly strictly adhered to. And I know of, just here in Melbourne, there have been convictions of petrol station operators who have been fiddling with their bowsers to give a false reading. So, and there's fairly heavy fines that go along with that if they're caught. So it's in fact, funnily enough, it's one of the it was one of the first requirements that we as a society, when we set up government, was one of the first roles of government was to make sure that weights and measures were set to a particular standard. And that standard is important for the proper operation of our society and making sure that whatever we using to, like, for instance, if we wanted to trade our gold or silver, then the scales that was being measured on meets a particular standard, and that standard has to be written into legislation. And that's the job of the National Measurements Institute, to make sure that that standard is adhered to and that the equipment is up to standard, and whatever maintenance schedule on that equipment is required, then the National Measurements Institute would oversee that maintenance schedule. That the water, in your particular case in Townsville, it's the water treatment plant operators who not only have to make sure that they're adhering to the state statute and the regulations, but that in fact the equipment they're using is accurate and able to keep up with what the requirements of the statute set out. So, and apparently from the letter that you're trying to find, we've got the response from your local council relating to this, which is, states that these sort of the Queensland Health are the ones who are sort of overseeing this. Well, not according to the legislation. The legislation's put the onus onto the water treatment operator. Yes, the standards would be set by Queensland Health with respect to what goes in there, but this sort of brings us to one of the points of law that is required. So here we've got the letter.
Yeah, so this is the response, and it has actually come from the office of the mayor, as you can see there, and signed by Councillor Troy Thompson, Mayor of Townsville.
Yep.
So we assume that it is actually him who has sent this, and perhaps not someone has intercepted it and done it on his behalf. But I'm going to assume the man himself has sent this letter to us. Yep. Subject to fluoridation of water in Townsville. Thank you for your inquiry regarding the fluoridation of water in Townsville. I was actually regarding the measurement of fluoridation, which is the first point I would make as, hang on, that's not really what we asked. Drinking water supply is legislated under the Water Supply Safety and Reliability Act 2008 and the Public Health Act 2005. And we thank them for that, because that gave us a little bit more ammunition to have a bit of a look at. Townsville City Council is co-regulated by water supply regulation within Department of Regional Development, Manufacturing and Water and Queensland Health. Fluoridation commenced, and they go on to give us a bit of a history and blah 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 blah. You know, it's giving us the target. It is recommended that the water be fluoridated. It's given us the target range, you know, depending on climate, to balance reduction of dental caries and occurrence of dental fluorosis, you know, which identifies again that dental fluorosis is also a potential side effect of excessive of fluoridation of the water. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah, it's most definitely one of the consequences of putting too much fluoride or the particular acid that they label as sodium fluoride into the water supply.
Which, you know, is why the question we ask is so important. Are they measuring it quickly, properly, and can they provide evidence of that being, you know, regulated by the National Measurement Act? Which, as we go through, you know, they don't actually give us the specific answer we requested. They don't tell us the number. They're not giving us the number so that we can go back to the National Measurement Mob and go, well, is this all above board? And then perhaps request a bit of an inspection to make sure they're using it and seeing it properly. So they didn't actually answer the question that we asked.
Interestingly, though, in the second paragraph, they point out that Townsville is actually bringing about, through its water supply, naturally calcium chloride.
Yeah.
And that comes in at a rate of 0.2 milligrams per litre. And they then top that up with the prescribed concentration of 0.7 milligrams per litre. So you've then got to look at it and say, okay, well, are you topping it up with calcium fluoride, or what sort of fluoride are you putting in to top up the calcium? I mean, from reading that, you would think, oh, we're just topping it up with calcium fluoride. They're not actually saying calcium fluoride, but that's actually what the natural occurring fluoride is. And of course, when you look at the legislation, they use the word fluorine. Now, the word fluorine embraces the wider expanse of what the different elements are that they've classified as fluoride, which is hydrolysic hydroacidic acid, is also classified as a fluoride, and that's actually a sodium fluoride, which is highly toxic, of course. So we sort of look at this and say, okay, well, we see that it was in 1964. Wow. Interesting year, 1964, because in the state of Victoria, there was a court case, and it was Kelberg, Kelberg versus City of Sale. And that was on
which we have right here.
Yeah, which is the 24th of March, 1964. And in that case, they actually found that there was an injunction being applied for through the Supreme Court with respect to the implementation of fluoride into the water supply of Sale and into the water treatment plant. And they actually found the Supreme Court granted the injunction. And I'll just pull up the particular section of the Act they relied on. So they were going on the Local Government Act, and they actually granted the injunction on the grounds that the funding wasn't actually there within the legislation to allow for the implementation of this substance, be it fluoride or whatever it be. The funding was there relating to the the actual setting up of the treatment plant, but it wasn't actually there for the purposes of adding anything extra to the water supply. So that sort of threw a bit of a spanner in the works. So I'll read it out. Subsection 2, the council may accept and have the management and control within the municipal district, or if the governing council consents, without the municipal district of any new waterworks, and may, with the like consent within or without the municipal district, construct any new waterworks for water supply for any purposes whatsoever, and may supply with water any public baths or wash houses. So they essentially, the corporation that was trying to promote fluoride lost the case, which was a bit of a bummer to them, but for us it sets a precedent.
Yep.
So, of course, where in Queensland legislation is there the provision for the funding to have the water treatment plant actually set up and pay for? As the newspaper article pointed out, they spend, what was it, 30,000 or 300,000? I can't remember.
300,000.
300,000 a year.
Yeah. So if we come back to this article, I'll just bring that back up.
So it's sort of, what are these people actually doing?
So yeah, the information I had been given was 300,000 a year, and that is according to Mr. Robinson.
Yeah. So where is the actual allocation for the funding relating to the equipment that's needed to put the fluoride into the water supply? When there's money there, of course, to set up the treatment plant, and of course then you would look at the ongoing costs of maintaining the treatment plant. But as far as actually putting, and let's face it, the way they're looking at fluoride, they're seeing it as a form of medication, because they're saying it's there to help our calcium essentially input, or their to stop rotting teeth and all this sort of stuff. Okay.
Well, this might actually be a good point to bring in that video that I've corrected now. I had the frame size wrong, so let's bring that video in and see what Troy and I originally said back in February.
Yep.
Jim Cole has a topic here that's a little controversial. Fluoride and other chemicals in the water must be addressed. Now, from my point of view, I've lost count of how many times I have written to people saying, I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it isn't, but can you prove that fluoride actually has some form of a benefit? And, if not, why are we doing it? And nobody has ever come back with a sufficient answer. Nobody has ever provided the science that we're alleged to have faith in. And I know there's quite a few people in the community who have expressed this to me. And obviously we have somebody who's bringing it up now. To me, on the idea of just cost cutting alone, if that fluoride doesn't actually have any benefit, as I understand it, it's costing us money to add that into our water. So is there a quick budget solution there to me?
Well, there's no answer to our water crisis at the moment. One, we don't have any safety in our water structures. There's not enough pipes. There's not enough water. We're not building enough dams. We aren't heightening the dams. There's no security. Then there's the quality of water, which is fluoride. Yeah. How many times you taste the water and 1 week it's good, next week it's not. 1 week it's this color, the next week it's not. There's
two filters on my tap.
Well, there's an issue with it then, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think it's time to start sending the bill to council to filter my own water to get rid of. I mean, I understand we need to add a certain amount of chlorine to get rid of this blue-green algae. And again, I got another notice via email saying we're having troubles and all this. And no sooner did that happen, you turn the shower on and it's like, holy shit, did I just jump in the pool?
Yep.
Like the chlorine, the smell alone, like I can't even bring it up to my mouth because the scent is just so strong.
So this
But,
has gone on for years and years, hasn't it? So,
yeah.
and there's still no solution. So at what point do we say, or does a politician say, because they're the ones who are making the decisions, I don't know what I'm talking about. They bring scientists in, but every time there's a pro and there's an against. We have to have a solution, but we have to take community consultation. Again,
Definitely.
You've got to consult the community. There's professionals out there that can say it's good or bad. My view on it is it's too chlorinated. It's just simply too chlorinated.
Way too much, to the point where I have 2 filters on. So, personally, I think it's time to start sending a bill to Townsville City Council to say, look, this is what I have to do to make it drinkable. But again, considering Section 5123A of the Australian Constitution is pretty clear about, medications and whatnot, I can't help but feel that forced fluoridation is in breach of the Constitution.
Yes, it is.
So there you go. That's that whole forced medication scenario again. How would you perceive that, seeing the Constitution is kind of your playground, mate?
Well, Section 5123A was brought in I think, in 1949, and it was as a result of a referendum. So it was essentially there to put control on benefits and with respect to the provision of the supply of dental and medical services and allowances, but so as not to bring about any form of civil conscription. And there it is. It sort of tells you there and then they really can't force medicate people without their will. There's Breen versus Williams, which is a High Court case, I think 1995. And you can go along to 50 doctors, but you don't have to take any notice of what they prescribe or what they recommend for you to do. So not even a doctor can force their services upon you. So it's up to you as to whether you want to take a particular form of medication. So, government, by turning around and putting this stuff into our water supply, and the cost is upon the ratepayer essentially, well, where's the approval from the people of the given area to achieve that sort of medication? But I think for the purposes of what we're trying to communicate to the Townsville Council is, is the equipment able to supply fluoride? It doesn't matter whether it's fluoride or lolly water or whatever it is, into the potable water supply as per the regulations and the Act, within the certification requirements that we have here in Australia. And that's the National Measurements Institute. There's no other way of bringing about a proper standard other than through that institute. That's what they're there for. That's what taxpayers have paid for. It was one of the basic requirements of government. And why are the states ignoring this? It's not like they don't know that this is a requirement. I know when, I think it was 2009 from memory, Brisbane got its water treatment plant, had the fluoride equipment installed. And in the first month of that equipment being installed, I know people who were doing independent tests of the water supply. They were just paying for private industrial chemists to test the water that was coming out of their taps at home, and it was 30 times the prescribed limit in the legislation.
Wow, that's huge.
That is massive, and that really put the highlight on the type of equipment they're putting in. Now, when I
And especially to put that into context, just think about, you've got your prescribed medication from your doctor, be it, something to the extent of, say, Valium or a medical marijuana, or even just your basic over-the-counter paracetamol, which in recent articles has popped up as they've got to reduce the amount of paracetamol inside the packet due to people taking too much. So can you imagine taking, you're supposed to take 2 paracetamols, you eat 60 of them. Imagine what's going to happen. Because there's your 30 times.
There you go. This is dangerous. We're dealing with medication. Right?
Yeah.
There's a prescribed limit.
And a very important element, particularly for people here in Townsville, where, the office worker might consume maybe, 1 liter to 2 liters of water during the day. But for those of us outside working in the heat, can go up to 5 liters a day.
Yeah.
So how do, even if they are putting the prescribed medication amount into the water, how do I then regulate that prescribed medication with, when I require more water working outside than somebody who works inside?
That's right. So this is why essentially, I guess, one of the reasons why that we put this limit into the regulations, that's got to be a question really for Queensland Health as to why they set that number. And I know around the rest of Australia, it's 1 milligram per litre. So why Queensland stood out as being less than that? What's their reasons? We need to see these reports, if there were any done at all. And realistically, there should be a full inquiry into the implementation of what it is. The other thing we're going to look at is, like we said earlier, there's 0.2 of a milligram of calcium fluoride. So if they're able to measure that, how are they doing that? And does sodium fluoride, is that chemically the same? Like if we had a container of calcium fluoride and we had another container of sodium fluoride as they top up with, are any of these people that are promoting this medication, are they game to put their hand into those containers and leave their hand in that container for, let's say, a couple of minutes? We can put a stopwatch on it. Are they actually game are they game to do that? And of course, this brings us to another court case, which was in South Australia. And it was in the Magistrates Court of South Australia in the Industrial Offences jurisdiction. And it was 2 apprentices who were responsible for working at the water treatment plant. And they were putting in hydrofluoric acid and into the water supply, and they were contaminated with this particular substance that they were putting in. And of course, they were injured, and there was a fine held, and it was after a 20% reduction in the fine. There was a fine of $40,000 under Section 19 of the Occupational Health and Safety and Welfare Act imposed upon the operators of that plant. So is this stuff the same? We all accept calcium fluoride, which just comes out of rocks. Is the sodium or hydrofluoric acid the same stuff? If not, why isn't it? These are questions that we've got to put. But what we're really concentrating on here is the measurement and And
Yeah.
as I pointed out, Brisbane, obviously the equipment there is not that crash hot because it's punching it out at up to 30 times a recommended level. And yet your act and your regulations require daily testing to make sure that there is only the given quantity going into the water supply.
Which brings us to the Water Supply Safety Act as cited from the aforementioned letter here, where they cite this particular regulation, this act. So we went and had a look and discovered that Drinking Water Quality Management System Auditor Certification Scheme means the scheme, A, relating to the conduct of audits of drinking water service providers, and B, developed by RABQSA, there's an alphabet gang and a half, International Incorporation, with an ARBN number as opposed to an ABN number. 112238169, but more importantly, other entities. So let's just paint with the broadest brush we can find. So, without being able to find other entities, because we could be here all fucking day, we went and had a look and we found the other mob. So let's just bring this screen down and bring the next one up. And we have RABQSA is Exemplar Global. So they've had a name change. So they've now changed their name. And it, funnily enough, seems to focus predominantly on American and Australian certification since 1989. So that poses the question again. So how have we got an international company working through this, and how does this tie into our Commonwealth regulations regarding the National Measurement Act?
Yeah. How does that work? Why have they gone to the international, and why haven't they just gone to the Commonwealth? Gee, they're certifying the audit of the substance going in. Does it go as far as certifying the equipment that they are using, and where does this equipment come from that they have sourced with respect to installing it into the water treatment plant to put the fluoride into the water? How far down the rabbit hole do we have to go? And I think this is why a public inquiry should be held. What we're showing our viewers is there is a problem.
There's a big problem.
There's a big problem, and we need to get on top of it. And it's only the people requesting from their local government, please, can you look into this distribution of fluoride into our water supply? Can you make sure it complies with the law? We can get caught up all day and argue about the type of fluid that's going in there, what they call fluoride, and the health benefits, or how detrimental it is to our health. Those arguments are really something that is only starting to, after many years, starting to come out now. I think the US has passed there's a law, the federal court there actually said that it's poison. Okay, fine, but that's over in the US. I think we really need to focus here in Australia.
But that said, and it's cited here in this, an attempt at journalism here, where they've sort of gone, the documents that have been shown to council are from an American mob, who have done it, and they're like, we're yet to see an Australian one. But here we have them using what I assume to be an American company to regulate it. So I mean, take your pick, guys. Are we working with the United States, or are we not? I mean, and again, when we went through elements of the PDFs that I'll just drop this down and bring back up, and we searched international, it was amazing how many international studies are cited to say that it's okay to use it, but it's not okay to cite international studies when it's not okay to use it. Make up your mind, guys. Come on.
What's it going to be? Yeah. So
when we switch over to which was it? This one?
What's the definition of a scientist, Batty?
So this again was sent by council. So this is the systematic review and efficacy of safety in fluoride. So, thanks, Troy, for sending this to us. And with a bit of a control F and an international, and hopefully I spell this right, we come up with, and the International Program of Chemical Safety, 2002 report on fluoride.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's okay to go overseas when it suits us.
Yep.
Go to the next one. Again, Australian and international research. Again, ecological studies, presents international age standardized cancer incidence data received, so they're checking to see if it's causing cancer. But what was fascinating about this was, as you read through it, the results should be interpreted with extreme caution as the analysis is overly simplistic.
Why would they do
that? Nothing to see here, people, and I mean, obviously our point is fluoride safe? The point we're trying to get to is, are you measuring it correctly? And they didn't answer the question.
That's right.
They've just given us a big bag full of more stuff to ask questions about,
That's right.
So, this is going to be a bit of an ongoing story. And unlike the Townsville Bulletin, it's going to require investigative journalism.
Yes.
Which we are more than happy to do. And I'm hoping we're getting, for those, I know the Townsville Bulletin watches this, they've gone through the channel, hence they wouldn't have known about Troy's previous statement that we showed. They wouldn't have known where to look for his military records and all that, weren't they watching? So I know they're watching, and I hope they're getting a good education on how to do journalism properly and investigate things such as court cases, legal documents, and the information provided by council themselves.
And in fact, I saw a comment come up there from a Ben. I think he said, you guys aren't scientists, or are you guys scientists? Well, What's the definition of a scientist? It's someone that spends their life sort of researching a particular subject. Well, we're not scientists, but
we're concerned members of the public asking valid questions.
Members of the public, but I've spent 25 years studying constitutional law, and that's when I was first approached by a group in Geelong at one of my public meetings that I was holding every week throughout the southern part of Victoria. They approached me with respect to the implementation of fluoride being put into the Barwon water supply, which they had successfully resisted in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and they managed to stop the equipment being installed by the unions who were refusing to install the equipment. So they wouldn't let the workers on board to install the equipment. So that they went away for a while. And then in 2009, 2008, 2009, they approached and said through the Department of Human Services, they said, we're going to install the fluoride fluoride equipment into the treatment plant, whether you like it or not. So then I looked at this purely from the legal aspect, and I looked at the Health Fluoridation Act here in Victoria, and Section 5 of that Act come up with the measurement. So then I had a chat. I rang the chief metrologist at the National Measurements Institute headquarters in Sydney. His name at the time was Dr. Richard Britton, Britton, and I asked him whether his institute had certified any of the fluoride measuring equipment that was being installed into around Australia in their water treatment plants. And he said to me, "You are the very first person who has ever asked me that question."
Fascinating.
And I thought, wow. And he said, "That's very interesting." He said,
and not just person, but this, I assume, includes, any councillor, mayor, water specialist, no one in the country in any way, shape, or form.
No one had asked him that question, and he was fascinated. And he said, "Listen, what's the requirement in law in the state of Victoria?" And so I read out Section 5, and he said, "Well, I can guarantee you right now," he said, that number, 1 milligram per litre, is too small an amount. He said, "I have to, by law," and I think it's Section 19AA of the National Measurements Act. Don't quote me on that one. I have to look at it, but I know it's in there. It says that there has to be a specific plus minus put to that number. And he said, I've got a certain tolerance that I can work within. But he said, "I can tell you now that 1 milligram per litre is too smaller amount. I would be over the statutory requirement and I couldn't certify it under the Act." So and I then went back to the group that had fired me up on this whole process. And I said to them, "Well, this is the way out. The chief metrologist hasn't got confidence in the equipment, so far as I know," but no one was interested because they said, "But this stuff is a poison." And I said, "Well, so what if it's a poison? It doesn't matter what it is. There is a statutory requirement under the legislation and the regulations that it has to meet a specific measurement. That's it. If you can't do that, we'll take the equipment out, whatever you got to do, and let's get back to the way the water supply was. And if you're going to add anything into the water supply, do so under the requirements of the law."
Exactly. These are their laws and they can't seem to follow them themselves. And, and based on what you were just saying here we are back at the letter from the mayor himself saying that the target range is 0.6 to 1.1. So there's they've got a pretty, there's their field,
Very
and also depending on climate.
Yeah.
So, do they aim for a certain point and then all of a sudden we get a hot, a whole bunch of hot weather? Do they run around removing the fluoride in accordance to the fact that the climate has changed?
Yeah.
I'd like to know how they do that.
Yeah.
Because once it goes in, it seems pretty hard to sort of get out.
Very hard. In fact, I think the only way to get it out is either through reverse osmosis, which it only removes about 91% of the fluoride. And you lose, for every 10 litres you put through the reverse osmosis system, you only get 1 litre that's usable. So you waste 9 litres. So there's an enormous amount of waste. And even then, you're not getting rid of all the fluoride. The only other way is distilling it. So you're actually boiling it away. And then you get down to a true zero. But that's a very lengthy process. I know there's a company in Queensland, I think, called Puro. And they actually sell their water, and it's just distilled tap water. So, we are a country that's very much looking at every drop of water that we use because we don't have a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And as Troy mentioned in your interview with him in February, we really need to concentrate on our dams and building our water supply up, especially since the federal government has opened the doors to immigration. And we're getting so many more people.
Excessive amounts of immigration.
Excessive amount of people coming in. It's just out of balance to our infrastructure.
Yeah.
But regardless, we've got a lot more people coming in who want water, of course.
Yeah, funny enough. Like, I mean, what are we, somewhere in the vicinity of 90% water?
Yeah, we must be, according to the way the immigration department's running the operation.
Well, I meant as in a physical form. Our bodies are allegedly about 90%. I'm just taking a bit of a guess, but there is that carbon element. So I guess I should pay tax on existing. But that's a whole nother can of worms.
But
I think that the important thing for to look at here, and it is rather coincidental that all of a sudden that the Townsville Bulletin has made this call, and I haven't actually communicated with any of the fluoride action groups or anything around town for quite some time now. Is it just coincidence that their petition has hit the scene at the very same time as 28 days ago I asked for this matter to be looked into? How are you actually regulating it? And now all of a sudden it's a story. They haven't answered the question. We're not going away. We're going to continue to ask more questions now that they've given us more information to look into pertaining how they are doing this measuring and how are they monitoring it. I would like to go and see it as well. That's something that we will be looking into as well. The simple solution to the Townsville City Council might be to just stop doing what you're doing right in your tracks. Clearly, there are a lot of people who are not happy with it. And even if there are people who are happy with it, why don't you go and buy your own fluoride and put it in your own friggin' water? Why should the rest of us have to suffer? Like, I mean, if you're one of those people that's out there that says, oh, I believe in abortion, my body, my choice, but at the same time, I want to force vaccinate other people and I want to forcibly fluoridate your water, I think you might want to have a bit of a look at your moral compass, because I think you're walking through a magnet shop.
So true. So true, mate. Magnet shop. I like that one.
Yep.
Yeah, well, mate,
I just invented it. I was actually came to me while I was half asleep last night. It was kind of like a bit of a vision, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you're happy to go and buy those sorts of brands of water, to keep in mind, reverse osmosis, you can't use it. You have a specific tap that's installed at your kitchen sink. I know this because I'm a plumber by trade, and I've installed reverse osmosis systems, and it is fiddly, but you only get one tap. And that comes out at it's just a dribble. That's all it comes. Don't bother to worry about using reverse osmosis water for your shower, because no, it just doesn't come out at the sort of pressure you need for a shower. And like I said, it wastes a lot of water, and you don't get rid of the fluoride. So this is a real problem with respect to how they're actually putting this stuff out, and we need to jump on top of it, guys. Let's not get caught up in whether we should be having it in our water supply or not. Don't force medicate us.
It's pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Pretty simple stuff. I will offer a quick couple of solutions to people too. If you are concerned and you don't really want to partake in it, and I don't say I blame you, because like for me, the fluoride thing is one of those things I'd heard so many times over the years, and people are just worried about nothing. But then, when my eldest son was first born, we got the handbook from the government saying how you should raise your children and all that. And once they get their first teeth, do not use full strength fluoride toothpaste was written there. I'm like, Okay. Why? Oh, because it's actually poisonous, and and it could do harm to the children. To use adult strength, a brand such as, but not exclusively to, say, Colgate, to grab that adult fluoridated toothpaste and use it on a child is dangerous. So that instantly got me thinking, and I discovered this. It's available at Coles and Woolworths and most health food shops. Grants from Australia, fluoride-free toothpaste for those who and as you can see, I've been using it. I've been using it for ever since that day, which was some 13, 14 odd years ago. Another thing you can do to mitigate your problems there, let me give me a second to bring it up, is to, because I was talking to somebody just yesterday, on truth, after looking into this, I'm going to go buy bottled water instead of drinking. I'm like, well, mate, it's such a low level, they don't actually have to put a label on it telling you that they're fluoridating it. He's gone, really? I'm like, yeah, anything that's at at a small enough level, and I can't remember off the top of my head what that level is, they don't have to tell you what that they've actually put it into your product, as far as food and water goes. So, yeah, you could be drinking fluoridated water from bottled water and not know. The best way is to obviously contact the manufacturer and ask them. But, the other solution is, this is a product that I, again, discovered 15 plus, about 13 odd years ago. The Pura, I think is how you say it, Australia's purest water, BPA-free packaging, non-toxic and safe, 100% guaranteed free from chlorine, fluoride, sodium, and other additives. You are drinking pure water. Now, the other thing to consider is you probably do need to consider the fact that when water comes from, say, a riverbed naturally and things like that, it is picking up natural elements from the rocks and such, as stated by council here, that do have health benefits. And again, when using reverse osmosis systems and stuff, like having gone down to the water filter shop, they actually recommend adding back a nutrient base as well, so that you're still getting some base nutrients that you would normally get from a natural water supply.
That's right. Yeah. So we need to.
So there are solutions out there for people.
There are, absolutely, but we don't like these forced products put into our water supply unless there's complete transparency. And I urge people, if they are really happy with this fluorosilicic acid being put into their water supply, then no worries. You show us that you put your hand in a container of that stuff and see how long you survive, and then put your hand in a container of calcium fluoride and see if it's the same. But if you're not aimed to do that, then why would you promote a product that, in fact, when you look at a packet of rat sack, you'll notice that it has an S9 rating, and the active ingredient is sodium fluoride.
Yep. Here's a couple of pictures I actually grabbed too from a video that I think will go out on. Let me just, sorry, wrong button again. Present. Stop that screen. That's why I can't see it. Share screen. Here's a couple of excerpts from a video. This video is also on my Telegram account. You can go and have a look at the evil history of fluoride. I want to thanks to Tracy for helping us with the comments today and providing this video to me. There's one, sodium fluoride, toxic, class 6, dangerous chemical, class 6.1, as you can see, harmful if swallowed or inhaled.
Wow.
Rather old one. So it's not like this has been around. This is some new discovery. You can tell by the artwork here that this is, from way back in the day. Sodium fluoride, poison. Our poison register. These are just some screenshots. I felt it was important to grab the screenshots because when you watch this video, these things flash up for maybe 2 or 3 frames. So it was a bit of effort, but I got it. Again, sodium fluoride. It's an insecticide. Caution, poison. Active ingredient, 90% sodium fluoride.
What more do you need to say about
insect powder in pancakes causes death. Sodium fluoride, insecticide.
Oh, wow.
Sodium fluoride, death to crickets. Well, I don't know. Maybe some people might say, but I'm not a cricket. Best of luck to you.
You might get someone out there.
Cockroaches won't thrive on a mixture of sodium fluoride, but I'm not a cockroach.
Unless you identify.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's people who may identify as cockroaches and crickets. Like, I mean, there's some interesting people out there these days, let's say the least. Fluoride to kill poultry. To kill poultry lice. Sorry, we should get as you see over here on the left. Sodium fluoride to kill poultry lice. So again, there they are using it to get the lice off your chickens.
So it's not good for their beaks or their teeth.
No, they certainly weren't saying anything about improving the beak quality of said chickens. Cities ban fluoride. Shopping areas show extras decorated. Where are we? Southtown Economist, Chicago. So cities in Chicago, and that is in December 7th, 1955.
Wow.
So these are not new concepts, people, but they continuously keep pushing the same narrative time and time again, and it's interesting, Alco's smelting plants were brutal with exposure to chemical agents, especially fluorides and carcinogens, and to a lesser degree, alumina dust and asbestos insulation materials, a frequent hazard for workers. Alco's mostly immigrant workers were shipped in by train. A health study would later confirm that crippled workers were the result of a fluoride dust hazard that had existed at the plant for years.
Wow.
Though Fryery was preoccupied with the killing hazards facing his Alco employees, and the aluminium industry faced lawsuits from farmers whose cattle had been injured in the vicinity of the smelters. So not only were the workers getting done over, the cattle in surrounding regions were getting done over. This is all coming from aluminium smeltering factories and such, Dentist speaks against water fluoridization. Here we are, May 14th, 1953. So those are just a couple of excerpts from that video. We might go out on just a little bit of that. There are a couple of other little things, some of the comments that people have brought up. Does it increase ADHD in the population? I don't know. I haven't looked into that. Like I said, the main purpose we're trying to get to the bottom of is how are they regulating it in our water supply. Thank you, Petite, for enjoying John Wilson interview on Friday. Of course, go check that out for anybody who's interested in his Freedom Union. Yep, you just sent me some material, so let me just bring that up. So Jeannie here has sent us a few things. Let me give me a second. Let's have a quick look at what she sent through. So Townsville's fluoridization of the water supply began in 1964 due to petitioning by residents. So apparently the residents wanted it. Which, again, we noticed in some of the studies that we looked at yesterday, there was a comparison between the fluoridated water of Townsville versus the non-fluoridated water in Brisbane at a point in history that escapes me. But it was interesting that Townsville was used as the case study for it, and it was based on very circumstantial evidence that apparently kids in Townsville didn't have as many tooth cavity sort of scenarios or tooth caries. But again, it's circumstantial evidence. What are the conditions of life in Brisbane versus that of life in Townsville? I can imagine in a play, especially considering this was no doubt done, more into past, and probably, within decades, I would say, at a guess, that kids in a Brisbane city are exposed to a lot more perhaps unnatural food products as opposed to, a Townsville back in the day.
That's true.
So were those contributing factors taken into that study? I'm not sure. That's something else to look into. But adding fluoride to the drinking water is now known to provide very limited dental benefits, especially when compared to pre-1975, before fluoridated toothpaste became widely available, according to updated Cochrane review titled Water Fluoridation for the Prevention of Dental Caries, and published on the 4th of October 2024, which was just recently. Cochrane is an international network with headquarters in the UK. Their systematic reviews and meta-analysis are typically regarded as the global standard for high-quality information, are widely used to inform healthcare policy and practice. In Australia, online access to the review is provided for by the NHMRC, National Cochrane Australia. So that's the National Health and Medical Research Council. So there you go. It's, there's obviously a lot more to that. People who want a copy of that, screenshot it or shoot me an email. I don't really want to make this podcast too long today. There's obviously a large body of evidence that Jeannie has managed to acquire from council, and I guess we'll have to sit down and maybe put our heads together and have a look at the multitude of information that's coming through here. I'll send you a copy as well, Daryl. Might be worth to have a look, but
that's good.
I mean, and again, here on average, 70% of total household water in Townsville is used on our lawns and gardens. And so what effect does that have on our food? So are we now absorbing extra fluoride if you're growing, fruits and vegetables in your own gardens, which, is something I know I enjoy doing. By using that fluoridated water, is that going to affect my food? Am I getting an extra dosage of this medication as a result of such things? And I'm assuming farmers are using the same kinds of water as well.
That's right.
There's a lot of added factors in here. Cairns are 28 Cairns GP doctors just unethical quacks. They want to prescribe a fluoride poison without consent for the outside surface of teeth. Fluoride now proven a neurotoxin by Dr. Katie Williamson. Cairns GP Group spokeswoman Dr. Katie Williamson said they were pleased that a deputation had been accepted by Mayor Amy Eden, who I believe is the new mayor for Cairns. That's dated the 1st of November 2024. Health Services drills Far North Council after knocking back water fluoridation meeting. Cairns Regional Council has refused to meet with Far North health experts regarding the fluoridation of its water supply, as exclusive figures reveal the alarming state of decay in our kids' dental records. I did see in that video that I watched a bit earlier that apparently it discolors teeth, and I wonder if excessive fluoridization had done that to me as a kid, because my as a young kid my teeth were stained from medications, apparently. Which ones, I'm not sure, but that went right through into adulthood, and that's the discolor of my teeth is because of medications. Thank you. Cairns Regional Council has refused to meet. Yep, we got that bit. So there's a few little bits and pieces there regarding those articles. And the Cairns Regional Council seem to be under the same sort of fire that we're at. Have we missed anything? I think we kind of caught most of it. There was another element Tracy sent to me. Let me have a quick look at that. Oh, there was a couple more comments. So sodium hydrofluoric acid by product of superphosphate by Incitec in Geelong. When we did request RTI request to Townsville City Council last year, so this has obviously been, people have been asking for quite some time of Townsville City Council to do something about this. Last year, they sent us copies of their certificate of analysis from the fluoride they received for their water treatment plant. Jeannie, I'd love to have a copy of that, please. The COA shows TCC uses sodium fluoride. So that's exactly what we just showed as a poison. So they are adding sodium fluoride, according to Jeannie. I have an article from the Australian government saying there is no safe levels of fluoride. Awesome. Can you please send that through to me? NQ Freedom Network at protonmail.com. So that's there. And it's also in the descriptions for anybody who wants to send us some relevant information. By all means, do utilize that inbox. Don't send it to me via Facebook or Twitter or anything else like that. I tend not to check them regularly. They do get checked eventually, but if you want to get a hold of me quickly, that's the best way to do it. Back to comments. I was quoted the reverse osmosis system for my whole house cost $16,000. So can you imagine if everybody who doesn't want fluoride in their water, and we're still not going to get 100% results, sent that bill to Townsville City Council for refusing to remove fluoride? Can you imagine what it's going to cost? And I wonder if it would be equivalent to the legal costs that Townsville City Council are already accruing to attack certain people. As I stated, I was at Magnetic Island yesterday for their community meeting with the councillor Anne-Marie Greeny, where she took a question on notice, which was regarding exactly how much council is actually spending to legally defend their position for removing certain people from the Amaroo or from Amaroo. People who have purchased their property with the intent to stay there permanently, and they had every legal right to do so at the time. Council want to change that. And I've been informed they're even bringing barristers in from Brisbane to fight the residents. So I don't know how much their legal bill is, but stay tuned. We're going to find out, because Anne-Marie Greeny reckons she's taken it on notice. And in fact, I'd like to extend that question, and I probably will, to Townsville City Council regarding all their legal bills, because there was a lady who had their chickens removed from her property, again, with a barrister from Brisbane. So it sounds like Townsville City Council has every intent on spending shitloads of money to attack the general people, and bear in mind that's your money they're using to do it. It's very, very disturbing stuff that we are all discovering. And I want to thank everybody out there who's getting involved and holding these people to task. It's great work. It's really good to see. I was very impressed with the mirror meeting down in Magnetic Island, and I will be putting a little something together on that very shortly. So was there anything else I've missed, Daryl? Do you think we've covered it all pretty well?
Yeah, I think we have, actually. I mean, the only other point that I think I saw a comment come up earlier, when you shower, you actually absorb more of anything that the skin is actually exposed to, especially when you have a hot shower. Not that you guys would have hot showers in Townsville, of course.
We actually, around this time of year, we don't have cold water. I turn my cold tap on, and that's usually enough. I don't need to put the hot water on. It's not quite that level yet, but yeah, in a couple of months, I don't bother turning the hot tap on at all. So yeah, hot water is definitely a big thing, and I guess that might have something to do with what the mayor cited there as regarding climate fluctuations or change, or whichever term he used. Where was it? There was something else that was sent to me. I was going to quickly have a quick look at. Tracy sent it to me. I might have to bring it up off of Telegram Direct. That's the one I wanted. I think, did I put that in images perhaps? No, but I should have. Save that as, let's put that in there, because it's one of those things where a lot of countries have actually stopped fluoridating their water, and that should be something that we should consider as a very relevant point. And in this particular thing here, the untold story of fluoridation, and we can get people a copy of that if they'd like. On the international front, most of Western European countries have rejected water fluoridation, including Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and Switzerland. The only 3 Western European countries which still practice water fluoridation are Ireland, Spain, and the United Kingdom. Ireland, 100% of it, 10% in Spain, and 11% in the United Kingdom. So in countries like India, they need the need of the hour is defluoridization of community water supplies and should be considered by government as an effective means to reduce fluoride toxicity in our country. There you go. It's very important information there. We've got lots and lots there. So, but thanks heaps for coming on, Daryl, and helping us explain some of the finer legal points there, mate. I hope the Townsville Bulletin has learnt a lot about actual journalism from watching this, and I hope the Townsville City Council is really starting to consider the people's request to not be forcibly medicated, because our body, our choice. And, you know, a big reminder for those walking through magnet stores with the moral compass. You know, you really want to think about your ideological principles. So, on that note, I will present and share. We'll go out on a couple of minutes of this 25-minute documentary that is available. You can get the link. Actually, I'll put the link in the comments as well to make life a bit easier for people. So just here in the comments is a link to this video in its entirety. It's also available on Telegram. And if neither of those, actually, I put that in the wrong thing. I want to put that in the comments, not the private chat. Sorry. So if anybody's having trouble accessing that and they'd like a link, just shoot me an email and I'll sort that out for you. Wrong button again. I'll get there. So here we go. The evil fluoride history. Here's the first few minutes. Enjoy. Thank you all very much for watching. If you'd like to, you know, help us out in maintaining the North Queensland Freedom Network, do consider becoming a Patreon. The link is in the description. It's only $10 a month, and there will be a lot more behind the scenes stuff coming up in the coming weeks. As I've mentioned, I've suffered a back injury and unable to work, so I'm trying to find alternative means of income while I wait for the government, who we know moves so very quickly in getting anything done, to sort out workers' compensation for me. So in the meantime, enjoy, and you know what, you might see me a bit later. I did have another story I was going to put together. I'll see how I go for time. Otherwise, stay tuned. Watch this space. There will be some more information on not only fluoride, but a great many amazing things the Townsville Bulletin wouldn't touch with a 10-foot barge pole for whatever reason, whether it's incompetency, lack of intelligence, or just plain they don't give a shit. I don't know. You'll have to ask them. But in the meantime, enjoy.
Procter & Gamble announces Crest toothpaste with Fluoristan, its exclusive fluoride compound, world's greatest weapon against decay.
Look, Mom, no cavities.
Former employees of Occidental Chemical Corporation have filed a lawsuit against the company. They say they have life-threatening diseases like leukemia, emphysema, and toxic brain syndrome. For years, doctors struggled to diagnose them, but finally they found a common link. It was
fluoride.
It's a byproduct that they can't do anything with. It's a poison, so they sell it.
You allow industry to use your water supply to dispose of their hazardous waste. It was a scam from the get-go. It is a means of getting rid of fluoride. It's a disposal mechanism.
It's bizarre. Fluoridation is the worst recycling practice in the world.
So, you're Alcoa in the 1930s, a giant corporation that makes products out of aluminum. And honestly, you've created some pretty amazing things. Tea kettles, foil, airplane parts. But one thing that sucks about manufacturing aluminum is that it's a super messy process. Because, guess what? Raw aluminum doesn't come all perfect and soft and ready to be molded into a frying pan. It needs to be chemically processed and broken down. And this chemical process produces a lot of highly toxic chemicals like ammonia, methane, and fluoride. And we're not talking about the natural fluoride that occurs in caves and stuff. We're talking about an artificial, man-made fluoride compound that is way more toxic. Like really, really toxic.
Hydrofluorosilicic acid does not occur in nature. It's a man-made molecule. And it eats through concrete, glass, stainless steel, fiberglass, plastic. You name it, it'll eat it.
The problem is, it would be super expensive to dispose of this toxic fluoride in a safe and responsible way. So, it's a 1930s factory owner to do. Why not pipe it into the air or dump it in the river? I mean, come on, it's the 1930s. This is the dawn of the industrial age. No one cares that factories are dumping toxic chemicals into the river. No one even knows what the long-term effects of these industrial waste chemicals are. They're too busy making up for prohibition or whatever people did in the 30s. So as the years went by, you continued to flood the rivers with this fluoride waste. And everything was going fine and dandy for decades, until things started to go south. See, you've been dumping fluoride into the air and water for over 30 years now, and people were starting to notice. Alcoa factory workers were showing symptoms of poisoning from the fluoride gases. Cows from nearby farms were getting really weak. They couldn't even stand on their own anymore. And local dentists were starting to notice strange brown stains and chipping on the teeth of children who live nearby. Fluoride is starting to get bad press. And if that bad press continued, everyone would start connecting the dots to you and your fluoride river dumping frenzy. And if that happens, you're gonna be buried with expensive lawsuits. It would be the end of you. So if you wanna survive this and thrive, then you gotta do something drastic. You gotta find a way to change the public's perception of fluoride from this toxic, poisonous chemical to something that's good for you. And this effort to rebrand fluoride into a healthy chemical would be one of the greatest propaganda efforts known to mankind. It's why today, fluoride has seeped into everything. It's in your toothpaste.
Chemical? You're gonna put some chemical in my mouth?
Tap water, table salt, bottled water.
Yes, Crest can really reduce cavities because only Crest has Fluoristan, an exclusive stannous fluoride formula that protects your whole family.
Chemical leak this afternoon in Rock Island. The chemical was so strong that it was burning through the concrete there.
It was just before 1 o'clock Thursday afternoon when hazmat crews were called to the Rock Island water treatment plant for a chemical spill coming from this tanker truck. The chemical hydrofluorosilicic acid is used to add fluoride to the plant's water. After several hours, crews were able to clean up the leak, allowing operations to return to normal.
The treatment of the water and the amount of water being used by the public, there's no effect on that at all.
So why are we putting that in the water?
The United States, Canada, Australia, Ireland, and New Zealand generously provide you with the fluoride in your tap water free of charge. Why? Because it's good for you, they say. It's good for teeth. It prevents cavities.
To say things like tobacco's harmless, fluoride is harmless. Agent Orange is harmless, they say. DDT was harmless.
Asbestos, right?
Yeah, GMOs now, they say, are harmless. There's a long history of science selling out to corporate interests while the people are systematically poisoned.
And to this day, people still believe fluoride is safe in the drinking water, and the majority of dentists still believe it's safe to put in toothpaste and to put in different types of compounds.
When in reality, too much fluoride has been connected to brain damage, skeletal fluorosis, bone cancer, and lower IQ in children.
What we did was we exposed them, let them drink the fluoride in the water for 6 to 20 weeks. The pattern that we saw, it typically is what we see with other neurotoxic agents that are well known to cause a hypoactivity or a memory problem or an IQ problem. When I first presented the results of these studies, one of the individuals sitting and listening to the results, he says, "Do you have any idea what you're saying?" And he says, "You're telling us that we're reducing the IQ of children."
And yet, the government won't let you escape it even if you wanted to.
It's acidic. It'll kill you.
And it all started because Alcoa didn't want to get sued. Welcome to Evil Food Supply, where we expose all the evils of our modern diet. Subscribe for more, and this is the evil history of fluoride.